All right, guys, we're back again on day 34. If you guys were watching the last tutorial, you managed to know that we're just about to end wintertime and get right into springtime. And as we kind of continue on into springtime and kind of just beginning to get there, you're gonna notice a few different things. Obviously, the weather changing. But before we get into that and I explain any more, if you guys are enjoying checking out my channel here and watching these guides, feel free to hang out with me on Twitch TV, All Fun and Games. You guys can check out the exact same way that I spell it on YouTube is the exact same way that I spell it on Twitch. I stream every single day. You can ask me any question that you like on stream. I always am up for answering questions. If I don't know the answer, chances are somebody else on my stream will know. So feel free to hang out there as well too. But let's get into another tutorial as we just are about to say goodbye to wintertime. So we have our resources. Our handbat is starting to go stale, which is okay for now because we definitely don't need to be worrying too much about that. But one thing that we are worrying about is if we're going to be able to get ourselves some more armor. So we have one pig skin left and we're going to need more of those, and I'm going to show you different ways on how to get that, because we're going to need to continue on to get more helmets, and helmets are very essential to keeping our brain nice and protected. So if you have not made yourself a handbat yet, you're going to want to take one pig skin and one pig rope, and one rope and make yourself a football helmet as we did before. And there we go. So we're all prepared. Now, if you have a Wigford in the server, the Wigford can easily make you some helmets by using rocks, gold, like we did earlier when Aki was helping us out. We're going to heal ourselves up. But now, if you are next to a tent, of course, we are going to be here for a while. So let's go ahead and cook up these juicy berries, because juicy berries are awesome. And whenever you make them, they always give you about 20 hunger per berry that you chew. However, they definitely spoil a lot quicker. So if you do find juicy berries in your world and you want to relocate them closer to your base, you can do the same thing. They just don't fit together as well as regular little berry bushes do. So before we continue on outside of our base, we're going to want to look at our base and see what we're missing. So if you have a chance to look around your base, you want to say to yourself, well, there's going to be lots and lots and lots of rain that is going to appear in springtime. And that's the difference between the beginning of spring to the middle of spring to the end of spring. Is the beginning of spring kind of gives you a little bit of time to prepare, kind of thing. The weather changes, it's still a little bit cold, and that's how the seasons generally work. So transitioning from autumn to winter, near the end of autumn, it starts to get colder, then it gets very cold, and then it gets warmer and warmer, and then so on and so on. So now that we're 2 days away from springtime, you're going to notice that things are going to start to get warmer. Our characters are going to start to get warmer as as it leads to the beginning of springtime, and we're not going to really need our thermal stone as much. We're not going to need to go back to our base as much. And also, the best thing about it is you're going to notice that the nights are going to start to get less and less abundant. So they're not going to last as long, which is great because that's going to give us more time to prepare. So there's a few options that we can do in this pace. We can either show you how to get ready to kill an essential boss, which in my eyes, it is essential. But in some cases, I don't think I want to put you guys into that predicament right away because, after all, this is a beginner's guide. I don't think you need to go out and fight a boss unless you absolutely need to. And the deer clops is really essential. It will become one of the best items that you use inside the game. So I really think that the deer clops is essential for killing. And the boss that I'm referring to is the dragonfly. Now, I mentioned that boss in my last video, and I said that, maybe I'll show you how to do it, but I think we're going to avoid it for the sake of the first year at least. Come to the second year on Don't Starve Together, we might brush on it a little bit, but I think that as of right now, I don't really want you guys focusing on fighting bosses. I want you focusing on surviving an entire year in Don't Starve Together. And once you get that down, then we can talk a little bit further on what to do. So we're going to be basically just walking around and gathering resources. So take your chester if you have a chester. If you don't have a chester, we're going to be looking for more berry bushes, and we're going to be looking for grass as well too. I myself am going to go head out and look for grass. One thing I'm going to suggest you do not do, because we don't have a lot of grass in our base right now, I'm going to suggest you do not take the grass that is close around your base. Do not do that. Leave that stuff alone, and instead look for the grass that is very, very far outside of your base. And we're going to look for grass stuff. So we're going to take Chester with us. We're going to head on out. I wouldn't mind if you take maybe a meatball or two with you as well too. But for now, we're going to go out and start gathering resources. And that's kind of basically where we're going to be doing for the next few days while we prepare for springtime. So as we gather for resources, we're trying to get ourselves basically anything that kind of looks appealing to us. So any berry bushes that are close by, we want to make sure that we grab those. I'm going to focus mainly on berry bushes and grass, and that's about it. Now the juicy berry bushes, I don't necessarily suggest bringing them back to the base unless you want to. They're not really essential. I prefer that you focus on like the smaller ones because they tend to fit closer around a flingomatic. I find that the big juicy berry bushes take up a lot of room, and also when you're trying to take things into a base and kind of compile them together, they kind of take up too much room to, I'd rather just have 2 or 3 berry bushes next to each other than have 1 or 2 juicy berry bushes. So, and as you can see that the snow just melted, and now we're seeing ourselves get into the beginning of what looks to be springtime. Now, it's still a little bit dim outside, and as it gets to springtime in the morning, you're going to see the transition of Don't Starve Together as the light changes, and now we're going to be getting closer and closer to spring, which means rain is around the corner, flowers are going to be blooming, and the berry bushes are going to start to grow. I wouldn't mind you leaving a few berry bushes as well too. Don't take them all. I've done that before, and if your base catches on fire, you're not going to have a good time if that happens. So just try to avoid doing that for now. Maybe leave a handful around. If you want to take them all, that is entirely up to you, but I would really suggest leaving just some of them alone if possible. So let's grab a bunch of grass, maybe 2 full stacks. And, like I said, make sure that you're grabbing the grass that is not close to your base, so that way you don't end up using it. For example, the best thing about using resources away from your base is that if anything happens, for example, your base burns down, or you accidentally used all your grass, or you forgot to fertilize your grass, or your grass turns into what is called grass geckos, which sounds odd if you're hearing it for the first time, but grass and Don't Starve Together will disease. It'll turn into disease, which basically requires you to pick the grass up and replant it, and same with other bushes and whatnot. Will do the same as well too. So you basically have to take it and replant and refertilize it, or grass will turn into grass geckos as well too. So grass geckos generally appear after a certain period of time in the game, and that's why it's always important to not really rely on necessarily the grass in your base, but kind of focusing on leaving some grass around your area as well too. So we got our 2 stacks of grass. We have a few berry bushes, which is not a lot, but just enough to kind of go back and, fill the area that we have around us. And, I brought Chester along the way just in case we had some extra stuff that we needed. But, as springtime arrives, we're just going to focus on getting a lot of resources and filling our base with a ton of stuff. Now, when you go through the process of filling your base up, you don't really want to focus heavily on that. Like, I'm going to show you how to do it because I want you guys to get used to, giving yourself a lot of resources. But the thing that you want to make sure that you're cautious about is just stacking up on tiny things like berries, meat and such, because what's going to happen is the more that you do that, the faster it's going to spoil, and then you're going to find yourself dealing with spoiled food periodically. And that's not really something that you want to do. So I'm just kind of focusing on getting us some grass. I'm focusing on getting some saplings and some more berry bushes. Our twigs, they seem to be okay, so I'm not too concerned about them right now. We're beginning to get a little bit cold here, so let's go ahead and drop our grass tufts off and our berries, and go over here, eat some meatballs, turn on the fire pit, get nice and toasty, eat our meatballs, and continue to think about what we want to do next. So next, we want to warm up. Once we're warmed up next to the fire, we're going to check on a few things. Now, keep in mind, your bird is not going to survive forever. So that being said, if you notice that your bird hasn't been fed, feel free to hover over it, and it'll say, your bird will tell you how long it dies on if you're using the Show Me mod. But unfortunately, it shows 15 days before. So that's not, that's not like it's around the corner. So we don't necessarily have to worry about that. And we're going to be using that bird to making eggs here very shortly. So as I mentioned before, if you have stuff in your fridge, start to look at your fridge if you're using the Show Me mod. It'll say, okay, you have 14 days before this starts to spoil, 12 days before, and so on and so on and so on. Honey is the best ingredient to have, so I always suggest leaving that there. And of course, you can see that ice will never ever lose value inside of your fridge, so you never have to worry about ice whatsoever. It's always a good ingredient to have in there just for emergency cases in case you absolutely need some sort of filler. So as the night goes on, I think the next step is to try to prepare us for making what is known as tooth traps. Now, in springtime, what ends up happening is there's something known as a frog rain. And frog rain is very, very, very annoying to encounter for the first time. And you're going to you might encounter frog rain, you might not encounter frog rain, but being prepared for frog rain is probably the best thing you can do rather than just running around when they decide to chase you down. So frog rain is exactly what it sounds. It's basically a bunch of frogs falling from the sky. It could be a limited amount of frogs. It could be a lot of frogs, but when they drop, you'll definitely know it. So first, we're going to make ourselves a few different things. So with the grass extra rope that we found, or if you want to manufacture yourself some grass as well too, we're going to make ourselves two things. First, we're going to make ourselves another bug net because we have the silk for it. And then next, we're going to make ourselves an extra tent. So if we need one more rope for that, and we got ourselves another tent, I would suggest do not put the tents in the same spots just in case you need to access them, but always make sure that the tents are within the fling-o-matic range. So even if you want to make a tent over here for your friend or something, and you can kind of tell which one is which, or if you want to use a different skin for the tent, but you're going to need more than one tent as it goes on. And always leave yourself with extra silk as well too. Obviously each tent doesn't take very much. It only takes 6 silk. So let's go ahead and make another one. And then we can still have some extra silk left over and still have some extra grass left over. The one thing to be extra cautious about is that, like I said, if your flingo burns down or runs out of flingo fuel, and then you end up with, you know, a tent that's on fire, you kind of want them to be a little bit spaced out so they're not going to set each other on fire. And there we go. We still have some stuff left over. I don't know if we have any extra fireflies near our base, but let's quickly run out as fast as we can, try to catch some before we run back. And then on our way back, we'll grab all those extra morsels that are on the ground from us not picking up our rabbits. So the tents are what we're going to need, because not because of the frog rain, because of regular rain itself. On Don't Starve Together, when it rains a ton, your character is going to get very insane, get cold, and it's going to be very hard when your wetness meter goes through the roof to regain, you know, the wetness and the sanity back, unless you have, of course, an umbrella. So if your friends don't have one and they want to regain their sanity, it's going to be the best resource that they can have, to have a tent that they can sleep in at night to regain that. So as you're heading back, if you guys see anything that you want to pick up, for example, if you see, you know, another berry bush or something and you want to pick that up, you can feel free to grab that. But in the meantime, just kind of focus on what we were mentioning about getting yourself more grass. Anything else that you see along the way? Let's grab that meat and we'll replant our traps again. If you are having trouble replanting the traps, don't plant them over here like this. You can. You probably won't catch them. Just make sure you're planting them right on top of the holes. Get your meat. Put them back down. You notice that that one only has one use left. And that'll give you some more meat periodically. And like I said, it's kind of just an extra thing. Come springtime, though, those traps are going to become useless because in springtime, the holes will get kind of, they look like damp holes. Basically, they get very like muddy, and the rabbits will no longer come outside of them. So if you want, you can go ahead and plant your grass now and kind of get into the process of getting, you know, those all planted, because we're going to need to have plenty of grass, plenty of twigs, plenty of berries, and we're also going to be getting ready to stack up on tons and tons and tons of gobblers. And that's what's going to be the most exciting part, is how much meat we're going to be having here very soon. So you're going to make sure that you don't get too many berry bushes, because of course the more that you have, the worse that you're going to be using for filler, and it's going to be a lot to maintain. But that doesn't mean don't feel bad for getting a lot of it. I just mean don't overwhelm yourself where you're basically spending all the time in springtime focusing on your little farms that you have for berries and whatnot. So don't really, like I said, don't spend too much time on it, but at the same time, don't forget about it. I obviously got two different berry bushes here. You can see that there's two different versions of them. One is obviously, they don't really kind of mesh well together, but as long as you're planting them close around this area, that's all that really matters. So that way, when the gobblers come out. Now, your berries are going to spoil in 1.4 days. Now, so there's a better recipe that you can use. I wish I knew exactly what it was offhand, but it does involve honey. I think it's like, from what I remember, I think it's like a veggie, honey, berries, and like a twig or something. I wish I would remember, but it's called the powder cake. And what the powder cake does is basically like an unlimited, it just lasts forever, and it'll attract all the gobblers that are inside the area. So while I quickly look up that recipe, or if Kiri, if you want to have a chance to take a look at that recipe to let me know exactly what it is, I'm gonna fertilize my berry bushes first. And then I'm going to fertilize the grass after. And now you might say, okay, how am I going to get a lot of fertilizer? Because I'm not really able to get a lot of it, or I can't find a lot, or where do I get more of it? Or what do I do if I'm running low on fertilizer? So there's a few different things that you can do. One is one technique that I might have already shown you, where basically you can get poop from the werepigs, corn, honey, and 2 twigs. Okay, so we need corn, and unfortunately we don't have any corn right now, so we're gonna have to try to grow some if we can. So one way to get yourself with more poop, or like a lot of poop in that matter, is by using a pig. When turned into a werepig, will eat endless amounts of veggies. Now that doesn't mean go over to a werepig when it's, you know, full moon and toss them a bunch of carrots, because that is a huge waste. But there's something called light bulbs, and those are known in the caves where you can go and get them. Now, for the sake of actually getting a lot of poop, because we're going to probably need a lot of it come springtime, and we're going to be refertilizing and unfertilizing and all that stuff, I'm going to show you a tactic on how to do that. So in the meantime, I'm going to drop off the rest of these. Bushes. Actually, I'll just plant them. Why not? And get these all organized in that way. And like I said, for springtime doesn't necessarily have to be the day, the year or the season of going ahead and getting yourself a bunch of stuff. You don't have to do this. You don't have to follow these rules. You can continue on to just do whatever you like. But I'm just basically saying that this is an easier way for beginner guides to avoid focusing on killing bosses, and more so focus on learning how to maintain your base and getting yourself a lot of stuff. So we're going to continue on through the process of getting more twigs, and then I'm going to go into the caves and show you another process. So 2 things we have on our horizon right now. One of them being, I'm going to swap out for this, and I'm going to put my old thermostone in the ground. 2 things that we have on the horizon. One is that we're going to be focusing on getting ourselves tooth traps, as I mentioned before, which are going to help us with our frogs, and then we're going to be focusing on getting ourselves some more things like the powder cake, because I mentioned that we want to get some corn for that, and then of course we want to try to get ourselves more recipes, which also going to come in handy for later on as well too, but mainly focusing on meatballs, pierogies, the basics of the basics. So looking around on the map, you're gonna try to look to see if we can find ourselves an entrance into the caves, which there's one over here. If you can find one closer to your base, or if you know there's one near you, I don't suggest opening that up, and you're going to find out here why in a second. So before we go into the caves, we're going to check our miner hat. We have our torch, but let's go down and see if we can get some good light bulbs. So going over into the forest is probably not the best idea at nighttime, because of obviously different types of spiders that can attack you and different mobs. So if you are venturing over there, make sure that you don't see anything along the way. And as you can tell, at the beginning of spring, we're starting to get cold, it's raining a lot, and that's why the umbrella is coming in very, very handy as we continue to do so, because we're going to really need to have that umbrella on a lot during spring, and it's going to become worse and worse and worse as time goes on. You're going to start to basically yell and say, like, why is it raining so much? Like, I wish that it was winter time. So as we open up the sinkhole, we're going to go into the caves. Now, as the sinkhole is open above ground, there's going to be bats that show up. So that's why you do not want to be opening up the sinkhole next to your base, because if the bats are near your base and consistently annoying you, they're going to come out and they're going to be consistent. There's no way of replugging up that area after. So as we're into the caves, the first thing you want to do is the cave entrance that you go down, take your trusty fire pit, if you have a pre-built one like we did before, and put it down, and you're going to want to be cautious about what you see here, and that is your bunny men. Now, you might get lucky where you see some bunny men right away, or you get unlucky and you don't see them, but sometimes it's unlucky to see them. And if you're carrying around a meatball on you and you're next to a bunny, or any sort of meat for that matter, these rabbits are going to attack you. Handbats do not count towards that, so for now we're going to just act as if we don't worry about them too much. We're going to get ourselves some awesome healing, and we're going to focus on getting ourselves what you see here, which are one of the best items in the game for renewable resources, and those are light bulbs. Now, if you're already down in the caves before this and you know about light bulbs, that's okay, but I'm going to show you another trick that these light bulbs, why light bulbs are so awesome. We're going to get as many as we can, and we no longer need to use fireflies, because fireflies are non-renewable upstairs except for a certain position. So you're going to want to make sure that you're going to be resorting to fireflies up above ground just temporarily until you get into the caves and you're able to focus on getting yourselves light bulbs. Because like I said, fireflies are good. It's just that you don't want to be using them consistently. Now, as you go into the caves, you're going to see many different things, but don't get carried away with venturing around the caves, because the caves are a very dangerous spot to be in, and especially during springtime and winter, going deeper and deeper in the caves is not a great option. Now, summertime into the caves, that's a whole different story, but we won't get there very first. So right now you can see yourself, we have a blue mushroom tree. Now, mush trees, I'm not going to really talk about them right now because I don't really want to focus on that. I want our focus to be purely and solely on finding more light bulbs. So that's going to be my goal, but if you do manage to chop some down and you can see the different things that you get from them, so be it. But for now, my main focus is, like I said, getting light bulbs, so that's what we're going to do. So we're looking around to see if we can find a light bulb field, and you're going to have to venture around until you see the orange floor, which you may or may not see, and you might just have to get some light bulbs just that are spread out periodically, but I don't really suggest getting those because they do give you a little bit of light, so if you can avoid picking them if you have to, that'd be great. And because we're going to be trying to get more than just, we want to try to get more than just 6 or 7 light bulbs. So we want to get like 40 light bulbs, and soon it's going to be easier to get that once we find the area. And like as you continue on and venture down, and I think I already see the orange part. Oh, that looks to be another area where a little swamp. So if you do want to pick up, as you pass by the 3 ones, you can grab those, because those are going to be an easy way of stacking up your light bulbs. But it always is good to just leave them alone, because if you when it goes to nighttime again, the light bulbs will give you enough resources where you can enough light so you can just stand close to them. So this is actually a very, very, very large light bulb forest. I'm surprised at how big it is. So normally you don't actually encounter gigantic light bulb forests like this. I mean, sometimes they're a little bit smaller, sometimes they're separated. So we're actually kind of lucky that our first cave entrance downstairs has one. Trying to get this juicy berry thing, but it looks like it's too close to the portal. Sometimes you'll have that where items are blocking certain exits and entrances into the caves. So you're going to want to make sure that you don't accidentally click your way out. So we'll stay in the caves a little bit longer. Our hunger's not doing too good. Our handbat is beginning to spoil. Like I said, we're looking for that exit out into the wilderness. And if we can't find it, it's not a huge problem. We can just continue on to get whatever light bulbs are left. So I just want to be able to show you what I can here about the light bulb trick that is going to help you into the future. So if you manage to find the orange field, basically what it is as you find it, you're going to see a gigantic collection of light bulbs in the caves, and those are just going to be in a massive, massive area. So just for the fact of, not taking forever into the caves, I'm just going to pick up what is left here, and we're going to go back upstairs, and I'm going to show you a quick little easy trick to do with a pig. So first up, I'm going to show you an easy tactic, and you don't necessarily have to do what I'm about to do. If you're too afraid, or if you just don't really care so much about needing to get poop, or if you already have a lot of rot, that's okay as well too. But let's go back upstairs where we just were. And generally, if you're lost, or if you're like, okay, which entrance way did I come through? Because you're going to see a bunch of different exits. That's why it's so essential to place yourself a fire pit near the way that you came in. Not necessarily just for the fact of making sure that you have enough light and heat when you come in, but also for the fact of remembering where you left. And that's why it's so important. So before we leave, let's warm up, put our fuel on the fire, put our umbrella on, and you're going to only want to use your umbrella and keep it on when it's raining, because if you keep it on the entire time, it's going to get worse and worse and worse. And there is ways to repair your umbrella, but it's not necessarily so easy. But that is exactly why Hound's Teeth become very important late game, and we're going to talk about that in a second when we go upstairs. So as we're down here, we're going to go quickly over here and look at what you see next to these rabbit hutches. So the rabbit hutches will always have 8 pieces of grass and 8 pieces of carrots in here, so they're good food to just leave alone unless you absolutely need it. In this case, we definitely do not. So let's go back upstairs and continue on our run up there. Now, if you're in the caves and you didn't manage to get any light bulbs, or if you got like 1 or 2, feel free to keep them on you for if you need any more fuel for your lantern or for your helmet. So because in this case, you're not going to want to use them up for what we're about to do. So we found our way back above ground. It's springtime. It's not raining, and it's not always raining in spring, so don't always worry about that. It's not like it's always just going to be consistently raining, but it will. The days that it's not raining in spring are the days that you're going to want to try to get most of your work done without, for example, if you're fighting things or if you're venturing around, because when it starts to rain, you're going to want to be somewhat closer to base or somewhere in the vicinity to where you can make sure that you get yourself enough shelter if you do not have your umbrella yet. So as you can see, our rod has spoiled. So unfortunately, that's why I mentioned that the next recipe that we're going to be learning here when we get a chance to get some corn is basically an unlimited berry. So you're going to have a lot of berries though, so I will be honest with you, I don't necessarily worry about it too much. In spring, it's always good. Let's continue to try to get ourselves another hand bat if we can. But unfortunately, in this case, we are out of pig butts. So we do have 1 left. I forgot that we did have that extra one. So let's go ahead and make ourselves 1 more hand bat, and we're gonna have to get ourselves more. And I'm gonna show you exactly what to do here. So let's fill our bellies up. Take the berry. Put our hat back on. Take this rod out of here. Put this back here. Oops. Put this berry back here. And sometimes if you can't drop it in here, that's why I suggest using the quick drop mod. And it basically okay, I just ate it. It lets you automatically drop the item on the ground where you're standing. And I just ate it again. Sorry, I don't know if I actually have the quick drop mod on. I might not even have it on. Okay, so it's shift and right click. Sorry about that. I thought it was left clicking there. And the quick drop mod is awesome. I really suggest getting it because, as you can see, accidentally I've eaten 3 or 4 pieces of berries without willing to do so. So now you don't necessarily have to have the powder cake, which I'm talking about. And powder cake will last thousands of years and it will never expire. Berries will only last 3 days before they expire. But the thing is, we have all these extra berries, so we could always just consistently do that. The only thing is, it's not really ideal because you're going to end up wasting berries as you go along further. So, it's nighttime. We have the rocks. Why don't we try and make our very first farm if we can? But the thing is we're missing poop, right? So we have some poop left over. We had the 4 from before, but we're going to need to get more. And that's what's going to come in handy right now. So grab yourself 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces of monster meat. And once again, if I did show this in one of my earlier videos, I'm sorry. I might have forgot. There's always so many different things that we go through, but it's really important to remember to do this because I might have showed you how to get a hand bat, but I definitely did not show you how to get unlimited poop. And this is what comes in very handy. Light bulbs count as a veggie, and a were pig, when it eats 1 light bulb, when it eats a veggie, will continue to eat more and more and more and more and more until it basically passes out from eating too many. And that's why it's so important to have our little pig houses next door, as we mentioned before. We also haven't finished them up just yet with what we want it to look like, and I'll show you that in a second. So let's go ahead to our little friend here, and you're gonna, if you don't have the shift double click mod, you're gonna just hand feed him. So 1 at a time, he's just gonna individually eat the meat, and as he transforms, you're gonna take all the light bulbs you just got and drop them on the ground. But remember, we want to keep a few extra light bulbs, so let's keep like maybe 6, and then we're gonna drop these on the ground. And there you go. And as he eats them, he's going to poop because werepigs can eat as much as they can and consistently will poop. And just be careful because as soon as that drops, he's going to come back and attack us. But that's exactly what we want, is for him to attack us. Now, as we, fight the pig and get all the stuff, we have now converted all of our light bulbs into manure, and we've also killed and got ourselves either a fresh new handbat or the ability to just take the pig butts and convert them into another helmet. And that is a very important resource for getting yourself poop. So we have a stack of poop. We can come back here anytime if we go back down and get more light bulbs. In the next video, we're going to show you how to make yourself tooth traps, which are going to come very important very shortly as things start to rain on you. So now take your light bulbs, put them inside of your fridge. Take your meat, put them inside the fridge. Take your pig butts, put them where they need to go. And we're going to take our manure and we're going to make ourselves our very first farm. And farms are awesome, and they're going to see why in the next video. But now for now, I'm going to go ahead and let's place it right here in the very middle of everything. And this is where we're going to end this video. So in the next video, we're going to show you how important farms are. We're going to show you how to make tooth traps. And we're going to continue on down the list of more important things to learn during springtime. So once again, if you're enjoying these videos, guys, feel free to like and subscribe on YouTube. If you guys want to follow me on Twitch TV, check me out on All Fun and Games. And you can follow me there and ask me any questions you like. But once again, in the comments, leave if you have any questions or if you have anything that you want me to follow up in the next video. But I will see you guys in the next one.